Hello, my name is William James, and welcome back to this episode of The Bald Book Geek. This is Friday Reads. Feel free to like, subscribe for all the new people finding this, share my videos, do whatever you do, comments, and hit the little bell icon if you want. As always, every little helps with YouTube. My Friday Reads series is quite new, but I'm getting there, and I'm glad that you guys are enjoying it. I hope you guys like this. Let's get on with today's show. I reread Blood Heir. Now, this book is a YA fantasy, and it's definitely the older end of YA. There's definitely adult crossover with Blood Heir. It's a very strong revenge story. It's very similar to J. Kristoff's Nevernight in terms of construction, and I like that. I like dark fantasy. I like bloody fantasy, full stop. This book was hit with a lot of controversy, and the controversy came out of nothing because people were jealous. People were jealous of her long before she even got published. The second this publishing deal in the writers' forums, people were ripping her apart because she hadn't built a platform, and it all just seemed kind of random. It also went to show that Americans cannot see out of themselves, and the version of slavery in this book is nothing to do with America. It's actually European and Asian, and dates back to the ancient world. You know, Americans often forget that there is a world outside of America with different laws, different customs, different cultures, and different relationships with race, gender, sexuality, and slavery. The drama around this book goes to show that. It also shows the level of ignorance amongst these people. America, what is your fucking education system? Anyway, I digress. I reread this. I adore this book. I cannot wait for more from this writer. Do check it out. First things first, I read The Serpent and the Dove, and I put this book off for a long time just because the hype around it was like, oh dear. And it suffers from the same problems many YA fantasies do. This is your basic religious war revenge plot that seems to be recycled very heavily within YA. I do like the main character. She's not your tropey YA girl, but The Serpent and the Dove leaves a lot to be desired. Why the story, in a sense, is good, the actual world building and the characterization is lacking. YA fantasy tends to focus more on the interpersonal relationships and motivations of the character rather than the actual world. And when you can't understand the world the characters are in, or if it's done in information dumps or random person telling you this is what the world is, it kind of just feels plain. This feels like it's trying to be Nevernight by J. Kristoff, and not in a good way. It kind of has a fanficky vibe. I think it could have been good, but the world building needed to be tighter, it needed to be stronger, and I think it was held back by being a YA novel. I think if the writer had gone in there with an adult fantasy, I think it probably would have been more fully formed. I also started the reread of To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini. I did a video on this book. I was very lucky to get the ESA, a phenomenal book, and great space opera, science fiction. It's huge. It's a huge book and phenomenal read. I'm so glad that I got to read it, and I'm about actually a little under halfway in, and it's still holding up on the second read through, so I'm always happy there. I mean, we can always say this about Chris Paolini. He may not be the most original writer when it comes to like the Aragon stuff, but originality and fantasy don't seem to go hand in hand necessarily. It's how you use the tropes, not the tropes themselves. And this is an epic science fiction novel that just so many years in the work, so big, so reaching, so powerful. So, yes, To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Chris Paolini. The Grafton Rules by Mark Binder. This was a weird one for me because I'm not normally a YA person, but the writer got in touch with me and he was nice enough to say hi and hope Anyway, so he sent me this and he mentioned my YA video that I've done, and I went into this not expecting much. I was expecting a very typical high school drama, and in the interesting coming of age story It's wildly entertaining, great characters, very real characters. It's very much the non-wish fulfillment side of YA. There's definitely a bit of humour going on, and I liked it. I was actually surprised. All the characters are very distinct. The writing is good. The energy is good. The characters don't feel like they are just stock cut-out characters for a YA novel, which happens a lot. This is interesting, it's funny, it's thought-provoking in places, and just genuinely fun. I'm glad that I got to read it, and I'm glad that he got in touch with me. I think the original name of this title, the book, was like The Fuck Ups or something, but you know what? I get that title, but I'm so glad that the writer got in touch with me. I think this is a great book, a great read, and I'm so glad that he did. Highly recommended. Thank you. Tomb Raider: The Angel of Darkness was a game that met with wide praise for its graphics and story. Was a horrible playing experience. It was buggy, unfinished, and didn't live up to the hype and almost killed the franchise. But the story was always fascinating, so a writer ended up putting out a novel based on the original script. I discovered this through the audiobook with partly by people in the fandom reading the novel. And it's fascinating. I really enjoyed it. I think the storyline of Angel of Darkness is stunning. While not my favourite Tomb Raider game, I'm a Tomb Raider geek, full stop. And I'm glad that I listened to this. The book, it's well written, it's concise, it doesn't feel like fan fiction, it feels like a serious novel, which is rare within this kind of thing, and I'm so glad that I read it. Overall, definitely enjoyable. I really hope one day, because I know there are patches to fix this game, I really hope whoever owns the rights to this gets it out, fixes it and makes it controllable, because I think it's fixes the game full stop or something. It's a great Tomb Raider title. It's just an unfinished mess and you have to put up with really bad controls. So yes, I'm glad that I got to read this, and I'm glad that I got to listen to it, I should say. Great cast, great acting, very enjoyable.